Oh, hi there.
Nearly every TV show has a pilot, an episode made to pitch the show to a network in hopes of being picked up and made into a full series. A lot of these pilots serve as the first episode of the series and tend to have a few minor differences from the rest of the franchise. Other times, these TV pilots are scrapped, but broadcast in some form, whether it's a single airing to see how the episode works with an audience, or included as a bonus feature on the home media release. The pilot episode for most TV shows are readily available, but sometimes these test episodes are left abandoned, unaired, unreleased, and presumed lost. While this isn't the norm, there are a surprising number of pilot episodes that aren't available to the public. Even some of the best and most influential TV programs ever made have a missing pilot. There are way too many to cover in one video, so let me know what other pilot episodes I should cover next in the comments or find me on Twitter at LostMediaMike. Here are 10 lost TV pilots. Johnny Bravo, Meso Blues. Before becoming the lovable creep and late 90s Cartoon Network staple we know today, Johnny Bravo had the most humble of beginnings as a student project. Created in 1933 by Van Partible for his senior thesis project at Loyola Marymount University, he originally envisioned a cartoon about 3 Elvis impersonating and crime-fighting vigilantes. Because of time constraints on the project, Partible narrowed down the scope to one Elvis, titling his short animation Meso Blues. Partible's animation professor, Dan McLaughlin, showed Meso Blues to a friend who worked at Hanna-Barbera. The studio was so impressed by his work that the project essentially served as a pilot, and the studio asked Partible to make a 7-minute short for Cartoon Network. During the process of making the short, the Elvis impersonator went through major changes, modeling his new creation on the look of James Dean, the voice of Elvis, the moves of Michael Jackson and the Fonz, the personality and physique of Gaston, and used his own middle name for the character, Giovanni Bravo, becoming Johnny Bravo. But I also have to point out there's an episode of The Brady Bunch called Adios Johnny Bravo that says the name Johnny Bravo about 50 times, so Partible could have been inspired by that too. The first short aired on March 26, 1995 as part of Cartoon Network's world premiere tunes, also known as What a Cartoon. The series would officially premiere on July 14, 1997, but in the nearly 30 years since Meso Blues was made, the cartoon that got Johnny Bravo started has never been released in its entirety. In 2010, with the DVD release of Johnny Bravo's first season, included the short Bringing Up Johnny Bravo, detailing the creation of Johnny, featuring 15 muted seconds of Meso Blues, along with 4 animation stills and concept art showing the 3 Elvis impersonators. Maybe the short could be released someday with the live-action adaptation starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Where to shop? Well, Stewie's has usually got good stuff.
Family Guy. Johnny Bravo has left behind such an important animation legacy that we are still feeling the effects today. 2 major animators would get some of their first professional work on Johnny Bravo: Butch Hartman, who would go on to create The Fairly OddParents, and Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy. Like Johnny Bravo, Family Guy had its beginnings as a college thesis project. While studying at the Rhode Island School of Design, MacFarlane created the short The Life of Larry, which his professor submitted to Hanna-Barbera. MacFarlane would rework the cartoon into Larry and Steve, which aired in 1997 on Cartoon Network's world premiere tunes, again just like Johnny Bravo. The Larry shorts caught the attention of Fox, who after seeing the success of other adult animated shows like King of the Hill, gave MacFarlane a budget of $50,000 to make a 15-minute pilot, which is way below the cost of a traditional animated pilot. During this time, Larry and Steve became Peter and Brian. Larry's wife kept her name, Lois, but changed her look. Larry's son, Milt, became Chris, retaining some of his original design. The show's airline pilot became Quagmire, Meg was added to the cast, and the bit character Shelley Booth Bishop from the shorts would appear in a handful of Family Guy episodes, along with some of the jokes from the Larry shorts being reused in Family Guy. Fox approved the pilot to make it into a full series, and the episode was fleshed out into the series premiere Death Has a Shadow, being aired on January 31st, 1999. Even though we have the 2 Larry shorts readily available, the first actual episode of Family Guy, this original pilot, has never been released. The first 7 minutes of the short can be found online, along with some stills from the second half that were found in magazines, interviews with Seth MacFarlane, and an early commercial for the show. But so far, this is all we have from the original episode of Family Guy. Drake and Josh. Drake and Josh premiered on Nickelodeon on January 11th, 2004 as a spin-off of The Amanda Show, a series that featured Drake Bell and Josh Peck. I hate to break it to you, but I don't think they're doing a reunion anytime soon. The first episode of Drake and Josh is usually referred to as the pilot, but in 2002, years before the show made it to air, a real pilot was made that sold Nickelodeon on the show. Virtually nothing was known about the pilot, and it lived in obscurity until 2013 when Dan Schneider posted a short clip to Twitter. The clip was obviously taken down, but the internet already had their hands on it. One of the most surprising discoveries to come from this newfound footage was that Josh's dad was played by a different actor. For years, the identity of this actor was a mystery, eventually being identified as Stephen Furst. He was recast when the series was greenlit because he wasn't available for filming. Based on the little information we have about this first attempt at Drake and Josh, the pilot uses the same plot as the first episode, but with some notable changes. The Miss Nancy costume has a different colored blouse, Drake's hair is styled differently. When Drake and Walter play basketball in the house, Walt breaks a lamp. The living room set is a little different. The kind of pasta that Megan spikes with hot sauce is different. And when Josh gets knocked out by Buck, the fist he gets hit with is different in each version. Since Nickelodeon is definitely moving away from Drake and Josh, an official release of this pilot seems unlikely, and we'll just have to hope for more leaks.
You guys are just gonna throw this away?
Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide and Ned's Declassified High School Survival Guide. Just like the case of Drake and Josh's pilot episode, this version of Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide uses different actors that were later recast. Unlike the Drake and Josh pilot, this episode actually aired on Nick, being shown on September 7th, 2003. In the pilot, Ned has a friend named Boogie, who would later be recast as Cookie, played by Daniel Curtis Lee, and the actor who played Boogie was recast to Albert Warmenheimer. Besides the lost pilot that hasn't aired since 2003, there's a rumored lost episode called Neds Locker that was never aired. It's believed to have used the same cast from the pilot, but there is currently no solid information to prove Ned's Locker is real. In 2020, during a Reddit AMA, Devin Werkheister, the actor who plays Ned, said he doesn't have a copy of the pilot, and I guess no one thought to ask him about the Ned's Locker episode. In February of that same year, a Reddit user claims that the actor who played Boogie has the episode and will release it. This hasn't happened yet, so it's probably a hoax.
And we all live happily ever after.
But these aren't the only pieces of lost media from Ned's Declassified. It's not even the only lost pilot from the franchise. Following the end of Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide in 2007, Nickelodeon ordered a pilot for a spin-off titled Ned's Declassified High School Survival Guide. Devin Werkheister signed on for the series, and a pilot was made, but never picked up. A few reasons have been cited for the spin-off never being made. It's believed that the other actors from the original series weren't able to reprise their role on the spin-off. Daniel Curtis Lee was busy with Zeke and Luther, Lindsay Shaw was working on the TV show 10 Things I Hate About You, Darren Norris and series creator Scott Fellows were committed to Big Time Rush. But another factor that likely played into it was that Ned's Declassified was a good show and did well in ratings, but it never pulled the same audience in the way its contemporaries like Zoe 101 or Drake and Josh did. And since spin-offs tend to do worse than their original, and most of the cast couldn't return, moving on was probably the right choice. The pilot is confirmed to have been made, but nothing has been uncovered yet.
If Chewbacca lives on Endor, you must acquit.
The Frogmen. In 1994, O.J. Simpson was arrested for the double murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman. The police searched his now demolished Rockingham estate, where they made a series of really bad mistakes that would contribute to O.J. Simpson being declared not guilty in his now infamous trial. During the mishandled search, the police came across a copy of the unaired Warner Brother pilot, Frogmen, a 2-hour-long episode made to pitch the show to NBC. And for some reason, while they searched OJ's house, the police screened the pilot in his living room. But why did OJ have this tape, and why were the police interested? Well, it's a bit overshadowed with all the murder, but before his chaotic trial, OJ was branching off into acting, and this unaired pilot following a group of Navy SEALs on assignment in Costa Rica starred one Ornithal James Simpson. After the wildly unprofessional screening of the pilot in OJ's living room, the police took it as evidence for one main reason. In the never-released pilot, Simpson plays a military man specializing in knives, and though not much has been released, we have one haunting still that shows OJ Simpson holding a woman at knife point. But the real issue wasn't that OJ simply portrayed a knife expert. In preparation for the role, he underwent military-style training, including knife handling. Even worse, during filming, OJ and co-star Todd Allen visited LA knife store Ross Cutlery. A Ross Cutlery employee would go on record that OJ would later return alone and buy a knife that's believed to have been the murder weapon that's never been recovered. The prosecution would look over the tape for any incriminating evidence, but ultimately never introduced it as evidence. This could be partially due to OJ's defense having good reason to have it thrown out after its bizarre screening party while the police searched his house. During the trial, there was heavy speculation on whether or not the pilot would air on TV, and in what Frogman co-star Evan Handler refers to as just about the only proof you have that there is some dignity in the advertising and television business, the pilot has never been released. It's been estimated that Warner Brothers and NBC could have made $14 million by airing the pilot immediately after the trial, with an audience rivaling the Super Bowl. In 2000, writer Brian Lowry watched the tape as part of an LA Times article on the lost episode. In Brian's own words, few have seen the final product, including many of those involved, who found themselves caught in the center of a media storm as they watched a lucrative career opportunity ride into the sunset, hitched to Simpsons' Ford Bronco.
That guy in a little coat.
Chris Farley, Improv Olympic. Before becoming one of Saturday Night Live's all-time greats and starring in classic comedies, Chris Farley got some of his first major gigs and some of his big-time connections through his time at Chicago's famous improv school, Improv Olympic. In 1988, the school was offered the chance to make a TV pilot for an improv game show, similar to Whose Line Is It Anyway? Improv Olympic teacher Charna Halpern brought on some of her best students to work on the pilot, including Chris Farley, who had just recently begun his training at the school. During filming, executives complained that the jokes were too smart, demanding they be dumbed down, and Halpern's star pupils were slowly replaced by, quote, dick joke comedians. Farley, not wanting to get fired, gave them what they wanted with one of his now classic physical comedy performances, winning over the executives. Halpern details the taping of the pilot in the 2009 biography, The Chris Farley Show, a biography in 3 acts, but no single video, clip, still, behind-the-scenes photo, or piece of promotional material exists for the pilot. The only mention comes from this biography. If anyone has any more information on this pilot, like who was in it or why it wasn't picked up, please let me know in the comments or on Twitter at LostMediaMike. Kanye West, the Black Larry David. Kanye West is one of my favorite musicians, and even through all of his antics, I can't help but love his work, which makes this entry one of my favorites. In 2007, there was a pilot created for a Curb Your Enthusiasm style comedy starring none other than Yeezy himself. The series actually had some credibility behind it, with the executive producer of Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry Charles, signing on to develop the show. The pilot has so many similarities to Curb Your Enthusiasm that Kanye would refer to himself as the Black Larry David, and took inspiration from Jerry Seinfeld's approach, surrounding himself with better talent to make up for his less than stellar acting abilities. An hour-long version of the pilot was originally made before being cut down to 30 minutes. Like Curb Your Enthusiasm, the untitled Kanye show would star close associates of Kanye, like his cousin played by Wyatt Cenac, his manager JB Smoove, his bodyguard Leonard Harris, and his mom Kim Whitley. Even the story sounds straight from the mind of Larry David. The episode had Kanye meeting a kid from the Make-A-Wish Foundation who he mistakenly thinks is terminally ill, along with some really trivial things like Kanye being paranoid about bad breath, or him and Wyatt watching the trailer for Mission Impossible. But unlike Larry David, Kanye actually tried to play the straight man in his crew, but also at one point he wears a custom-made tiger hoodie that completely covers his face, so I don't know exactly what they were going for here. Because the show was made by Kanye, the episode was interspersed with serious interviews from important figures talking about Kanye's cultural impact. The team was given 5 days to shoot the pilot, but the group ended up working through July and August of 2008, and they still weren't finished. Around this time, Kanye was gearing up to record 808s and Heartbreak, and by September, Charles had announced that the show was officially shelved, citing it was too hardcore for HBO, and the shifting management in HBO, and saying that the company has a bad track record with black artists. But Wyatt Cenac blames the failure on the lack of Kanye in the show, saying they let the supporting cast take up too much screen time. In 2010, 4 minutes of the pilot was uploaded to YouTube as part of Allison Quinn's acting reel and wasn't noticed until Gawker found it in 2013. After Gawker released an article about the pilot, Wyatt Cenac showed the 30-minute cut of the pilot as part of his comedy act, where he gave details about the show. So we know Cenac is in possession of the 30-minute cut, but nothing has been said about the original hour-long version. Honestly, I can't see a project like this being a long-term commitment for Kanye with his recording and touring schedule, but I can't help to think about the missed opportunity a show like this was. The pilot was made in 2007, years before Kanye became one of the most controversial figures in all of music. Could you imagine an episode about the Taylor Swift VMA incident or about his run for presidency? I'm probably hyping this up too much, but based on the clips we've seen, this show looks like a real missed opportunity.
Mascot of an evil corporation.
The Simpsons. Way back in 1976, Simpsons creator Matt Groening published his comic series, Life in Hell, which eventually gained the attention of Tracy Ullman, who wanted Groening to make his comics into a sketch on her show, The Tracy Ullman Show. Groening decided against a straight adaptation and created original characters for the show, eventually coming up with Homer, Marge, Lisa, Bart, and Maggie, naming his short The Simpsons. The shorts were obviously a hit on Tracy's show and made into their own spin-off. Yeah, The Simpsons is a spin-off. The first episode produced for The Simpsons was titled Some Enchanted Evening, about Homer and Marge hiring a babysitter who turns out to be a thief. But the episode hit some major production setbacks, mainly that the animation sucked. Simpsons producer James L. Brooks straight up said, "This is shit." This episode was remade from the ground up and would serve as the 8th episode of The Simpsons, titled Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, airing May 13th, 1990. About 5 minutes of the original pilot episode was released on The Simpsons Season 1 DVD as a bonus feature, but the rest of the very first episode from one of television's most important series remains unseen by the public.
Vaya con Dios.
The King of the Hill spin-off, Monsignor Martinez. Speaking of spin-offs, when I think of a spin-off, I think of important characters that didn't get enough time in the original. Saul from Breaking Bad, Frasier from Cheers, and even though it sucked, Joey's spin-off from Friends. All of these make logical sense as a continuation of the series. What doesn't make sense is the live-action King of the Hill spin-off, Monsignor Martinez. In King of the Hill, Las Días y los Noches de Monsignor Martinez was a show the Hills would watch about a Catholic priest/mercenary. The TV show had a reoccurring role on King of the Hill, having appeared in 8 episodes over the show's 259 episode run, but it was never really a mainstay of the series. For whatever reason, in 2000, near the peak of King of the Hill's popularity, Fox commissioned a live-action pilot based on the show within a show. The pilot was said to have been pretty good. Mike Judge even said it was funnier than anything else they had written for King of the Hill, but Fox passed on it because, get this, it was about a Catholic priest who shot people. I'm not sure what they were expecting there. It's been long believed that there were copies of the episode circulating, and Mike Judge even confirmed that he once had a copy, but it was destroyed in a break-in. In 2019, Reddit user Juanito Says made a post on the r/King of the Hill subreddit saying, "I have a copy of the Monsignor Martinez pilot," claiming to have 3 copies, and the very next day, they released a 3-second clip, proving they at least have some of the episode. In March 2020, the website Cinedub alleged to have a copy of the pilot, seemingly separate from the discovery of Juanito Says. The newly discovered tape was a rough cut with no music and bad audio mixing. Since its discovery, member of the media collectors group VHS Misfits, Joe Kleiman, has been screening the pilot at his home, trying to find a legal way to release it. Recess. In the 90s, instead of creating full pilot episodes, Disney would have their teams create animatics, something that Recess co-creator Paul Gurman described as a filmed version of the storyboard that kind of looks like a slideshow set to dialogue and music. In '96, Gurman and his friend Joe Absalambert, who had previously worked together on Rugrats, teamed up together again to create an animatic to pitch their show Recess to Disney. The final character designs weren't set, so in this animatic, each of the Recess characters looks slightly different, and the entire project uses a different, more serious-looking art style. Little of the original animatic has been released, but the entire episode was reanimated into the series premiere, The Break-In. What makes things even more interesting is that the released clips we have from the pilot aren't the actual version pitched to Disney. Instead, Disney had a separate team animate the small segments of the animatics so they could be used in ads to promote the show, notably in the ABC Saturday Mornings promo on the 1997 VHS release of the 101 Dalmatians movie. I remember seeing this when I was a kid. It's so weird this is a piece of actual lost media. Other than this brief preview, we have a few pieces of the concept art from the pilot that can be seen on the featurettes on the Recess School's Out DVD. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and maybe even think about subscribing. You know the drill. All of my videos are made from fan suggestions, so if you want me to cover a certain topic or a specific piece of Lost Media, let me know in the comments or find me on Twitter at LostMediaMike. This is Mike with All Things Lost. See you soon.